Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Mind Game. It's been great feedback so far, and I really appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. Really enjoyed doing this so far. I got a special guest today, a friend of mine, Glen Metropolit, who played in the National Hockey League, played over 400 games, and his story is quite incredible. Grew up in inner city Toronto and made it to the NHL really against all odds. Grew up in an impoverished neighborhood, had an unbelievable hockey career from there. So we're going to hear his story and just how, he made it through resilience, perseverance. But I just want to review a little bit of yesterday. Had my daughter on. We talked about parenting. We talked about, what it was like to have an open home with mental health and just how important it is for that dialogue. I apologize today. Dr. Diane McIntosh couldn't make it. She's very busy with the COVID-19 stuff. Lots of people struggling through mental health with that. So she's not going to be with us today, but we're still going to have a great conversation with Glen Metropolit and what he's learned throughout the course of his life, and talk about dedication and perseverance. Played for quite a number of NHL teams, was never drafted. But again, it's where he's come from and where he is today. It just shows a true story of resilience, dedication, courage, everything. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about some masculinity with Glen, what he learned, what he knows now, what it was like to play in the National Hockey League, what it was like to grow up where he grew up, and just, some different things towards his life. So let's bring him in right now. Metro.
Hey, Mr. Hirsch, how you doing, buddy?
It's good to have you, fella. I appreciate you doing this. And like I said, we're going to probably dig into a few different things. And I got a picture of your ugly mug here playing in the National Hockey League. We can talk to each other like that. We were teammates at one point. So that's pretty cool, playing for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, you should be wearing a hockey helmet right now, though. You were. Yeah.
But let's start with how you grew up. Like, just talk about the area of Toronto, what that was like growing up in inner city Toronto for you. And then how did you even get into hockey with the area that you grew up in?
Well, obviously growing up Canadian, that's kind of it's in our blood playing hockey. So with me growing up downtown Toronto, part of town that's kind of, it's a little rough upbringing. It's kind of the projects. It was called Regent Park. It's still there, but they're kind of revamping it. And it's kind of sad when you go back. It's all new high rises and stuff. They're taking down all the old buildings. So, my journey started back there. Everyone played hockey. Had a lot of friends that were playing hockey. We'd all stuck together. We just play hockey every day, whenever we could. So, and that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
And just growing up, the things that you saw and you had to deal with, though, could have pulled you in a very different direction. You could have gone in a completely different direction. You could have gone down a path of drugs or alcohol, or because all that stuff was right in front of you. How did you stay away from that?
Well, yeah, there's days on the way to the rink where you see, drug dealers, take the stairwell down because the elevator wouldn't work in the building. So you pass the drug dealer or, someone doing drugs in the stairwell. But that was kind of my life at the time. It didn't really bother me. It was just like, okay, yeah, you do what you do, and I'm going to the rink. So I saw the world with different eyes, that's for sure.
So very early, you must have realized, hockey must have been a way out for you, or is it something you just played? It's something that you just did. But how did and it's not just hockey I want to get into today, but sport in general. How sport, art, whatever, just having, if you didn't have hockey, I can't even imagine what things would have been like for you.
Yeah, that's for sure. That was my happy place. I had everything happening outside the rink, so to speak, was just, chaos. From, my story, foster homes, and a few times being in that, bouncing around with my mom, different places, living around the city. And then I'd always, that was kind of like my happy place, was just being able to get on the rink with, if it was myself or with my buddies, it was great that the city ran the rink, so you always knew there was ice, so, and then you got your good friends that, there's good people that were being raised in there, but you just got pulled in different directions.
Yeah.
Myself and the friends that I kind of knew, I was at a young age. I knew what was good and what was bad, and I kind of I fell in love with hockey, and that was my escape with our core group of guys that, you had the other guys that would go off and do burglaries or whatever, steal and do whatever they had to do to kind of survive a little bit. And um, ours was just getting on the ice, playing ball hockey in the bottom of the basements of the apartments, anywhere we could play hockey. That's kind of what we did, and that's kind of what it just brought my creativity out, my love for life a bit.
So you must have. I mean, there must. I remember you telling me a story too, where they'd be, it'd be like late at night and nobody really cared where you were. Like you didn't really have that, obviously your mother cared where you were, but you were just kind of left on your own to learn and to, I remember you telling a story where you'd be stick handling around leaves and stuff. Like you just, whatever, like you had one stick, and if you broke that stick, you didn't get another one. Like how was that, growing up? Was it something that you just dealt with, or was it something that you saw that toughened you up mentally to be able to deal with things later on in your life?
See, growing up in that environment, that's all I knew. Hershey, it was more or less, it wasn't getting a new pair of skates. It'd be getting a pair of hand-me-downs from a friend. Those were new skates to me.
Yeah.
So, if I'm on the rink, I wasn't really taking slap shots because, you only have a ball hockey stick and ice hockey. That one stick was for everything. So it would be no slap shots allowed, more or less just pass and stick handling. So with that being said, that's that was the life down there.
Yeah.
You had other problems going on with family issues. My mom was trying to find her own little way, and
yeah.
As long as I was with friends, then we'd be able to do whatever we wanted, kind of deal.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be getting into trouble too much. We'd always be just hanging out, playing hockey, and when the lights were down, we'd all just be hanging around the park.
Yeah.
But we'd always be doing stuff. Like we'd go run the hills at night. It was a weird mindset that we're all in. We all wanted to get better. And, fast forward, as I started playing junior hockey and getting up, it's kind of had to make a decision like, okay, this isn't for me anymore. My friends that were now having to take care of themselves, they were going down the wrong path. And I still loved hockey, and I just kept with it.
So I guess, would you say as a parent, and I think we all know this though, but it's so important to, be aware of the crowd that your kids are hanging out in. It sounds like somehow you found a crowd that was good for you, right? Like that helped you, even though you knew that at one point you were going to have to, figure things out on your own. Is that so? As a parent, looking back, how important was that crowd of kids that you hung out with that helped keep you away from that stuff? And you probably still saw guys get pulled in bad directions.
Yeah. It was one of those things I had to learn on my own as I go. I knew who I didn't want to be. So I don't know if it was installed with me in regards to relatives being like, stay away from that crowd. Don't do that. Don't do this. And me taking their advice. But, what would they say about character, right? Character is built when people aren't watching. It's what you do, right? And I just knew that being part of those crowds, that wasn't the right thing. I tried to hang out with those crowds just to try to fit in, but they weren't who I was, I guess. We had our group of guys that were kind of focused, and not saying that I wasn't the best in school. I was bouncing around from school to school. Not being able to read at a certain age and being scared in class, having to read out loud in front of your classmates. I was that kid, and I was the class clown, just to try to get attention, going to different schools. So you just learn as you go, and I would always try to be. My mom always said, try to treat people the way you want to be treated, and that's kind of how I always try to be, And even
so moving forward from there, you ended up out in Vernon, BC. You were obviously you had talent. Somebody saw that talent in you, but I think I recall you saying there was a mentor kind of that took care of you, whether it was an uncle or somebody that helped you kind of along the way. And I guess the point of this is that I just want to relay that as an adult, you don't have to be a parent to, you can be a friend to a kid. You can just be somewhere, a safe person to talk to. And it sounds like you had that. Did you have that when you were younger?
Yeah, I had great relatives, Hershey. My uncles were there, my mom's friends. But specifically, my one uncle, I moved in with him down in the city when I went to high school, and he was there to kind of help me get to junior hockey and stuff like that. So he was a big help for me as I was in my junior days, and I spent 2 years in junior, and that was kind of the stage where I had 2 great years in junior hockey in Toronto Metro Junior B, Junior A, Richmond Hill, and then it came to the point I was at the crossroads where I was like, man, I got to kind of get out of this because I was starting to go down the wrong road. I was 19. I'm like, okay, you're starting to go to bars and stuff like that, and I was just like, I got to get out of here, and that's when I made a big decision on my own to get out to Vernon, BC, play for the Lakers at the time. And it was the best move of my life. It was scary. I had to go across the country on my own.
Yeah.
I did it. I concentrated on my high school grades and got recruited by a lot of schools, signed a letter of intent with Bowling Green, Ohio, the Falcons. And long story short, went into the summer, plan on hearing back for, I did well my SATs, and my grade point average wasn't good enough. I'd have to be redshirted for a whole year. And that means you just practice with the team and don't play games. And at that time, I wanted to play hockey, and that's where I started my journey, East Coast Hockey League, in a day,
So you had a coach, though, I think it was your coach in Vernon, you said he helped you out a lot too as well. Like, what was that like for you? Yeah,
well, my coach that found me was Rob Bremner. I went to a camp in Guelph at that time that summer when I was kind of, when he saw me and he was like, hey, why don't you come out there, Vernon, BC? And as I got out there, assistant coach was Troy Mick, played in the WHL, I think leading goal scorer.
Yeah, I played against him.
Against Micker, yeah, great guy. And they guided me in the right way. Troy Mick was actually, he played in East Coast Hockey League for the late George Kozak, and he got me a tryout with Atlanta Knights at the time, IHL. And I was an early cut. I went down to Nashville, and that's kind of where I signed with the Nashville Knights, East Coast Hockey League. And
was the NHL even a thought at that point? Like, did you ever feel like, was the NHL your end goal, or were you just like playing because out of the love of the game, that was just what you did? I mean, you came from such an impoverished area, like everything was a bonus up to that point.
I think it was still the mindset, survival mode. Just play hockey. I'm getting paid. I wasn't getting paid a lot, but East Coast Hockey League, they give you an apartment. They set you up where you live, and then in my mind, I knew I was good. And if I just kept at it, I kind of keep on making it up the ranks. NHL, I was just wanting to improve. I just wanted to.
So far, you had a couple of pretty good mentors. So the point I'm making is that, along the way, it's the difference you can make in another child's life and another youth's life. You don't have to be a parent. You can be a coach. You can be an uncle. You can be, like with the attitude that you can and the positivity you can bring to a child, like that changed your life. Like if you don't have that, you have a completely different life. Like who knows what would have happened, but the influence that they had on you and the mentorship, right? Like, I guess I don't even realize the effect that I have on like, I'm worried about my own kids. I want to parent my own kids, right? But I might be able to help someone else along just by, giving them good advice. And it sounds like you had that up to that point. It sounds like you needed some help along the way. And how important is it for kids to have a mentor like that?
Yeah, well, let me rewind back to Regent Park days. Teenagers, we'd be running around, but our mentorship, our people that we looked up to were the people that worked at the Parks and Recreation Centers. Those are the guys we played ball hockey after. They're there to help us and talk to us and teach us, and Boys and Girls Club. Those guys don't get enough credit. They were there kind of really guiding you in the right way, stay out of trouble, and work hard in school, But and then coaches. I had great, amazing coaches, pro level, from Mark Kumpel to my first year in East Coast Hockey League to, Switzerland.
And then so going through, as a kid, you must have had a lot of worries and a lot of anxious moments. Like, how did you learn how to deal with that as a kid? Like, what were some things that helped you?
Well, for me, it was just my vice was getting out playing hockey. That's kind of where I just felt free. I just didn't. It just kind of it set me free a little bit from everything that was going on outside the hockey rink. You know, it'd be like, give me my hockey stick, and
Yeah.
what was going through, what we were going through at my teenage years, and that's kind of where I found my
Yeah.
happiness, Hershey. You know, that's
Yeah, 'cause as a kid, I mean, yeah, you saw things that you shouldn't have seen as a kid. I'm guessing, right? And then just being able to deal with that to get through what you got through. I get so like I say, sports, arts, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be hockey, right? I mean, just
Right.
having a child in something and teaching them the lessons that they learn, and through hockey, it sounds like you learned some really good skills that helped you through those times.
Well, you learn, teamwork, you learn perseverance, work hard, right? It's there's so many things you work as, being able to get along socially with teammates, and you set for a goal. So much things you can take away from that.
Yeah.
Playing
And just the strength and resilience you show. So, you're playing in the East Coast Hockey League. All of a sudden, you're in the minors, right? Like things are moving along for you. I think who did you sign with? Washington?
I ended up signing 2 years in the East Coast Hockey League. Then I went to the IHL Grand Rapids for 2 years, and then I signed with the Washington Capitals in '99, 2000. Yeah.
And then, so what was that like coming from where you came from, and all of a sudden you sign a pro contract? Like that, you got money now. like what is that like for a kid that came from inner city that never grew up with anything? All of a sudden, was it like what was that like? What did it feel like? Like did you just want to go spend it all? Like how did that affect you?
It wasn't really so much about that. It was just like the pressure while reaching your dreams and then trying to stay there.
Yeah.
It was and just not being in awe of Adam Oates. I was playing with some of the amazing players that I've watched growing up. It was just like, okay, am I worthy of being there at that level with these guys? So it was more of a mind, like a mind struggle at the time. Feeling like you're part of that team. Back in the day, the vets didn't really communicate with you. It was just, am I part of this? I remember just going through that. Not feeling like I was really a part of the team.
Yeah. What kept you going? Like, what kept you going through all this? You're bouncing around. You played in the roller hockey league. Like what kept you moving forward?
I think, like I told you, it was just playing hockey. After my East Coast Hockey League, my first year, I ended up coming back home to Toronto. And you don't save much money when you're playing East Coast Hockey League 25 years ago. So there was the RHI going on. I was kind of actually laying sod. I was laying down sod, cutting weeds. And I got asked if I wanted to go play roller hockey. I'm like, well, at first I wanted to kind of really concentrate on building up my body in the off season, but I didn't have enough money. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go and play roller hockey. So I went and played roller hockey in the first 2 summers. And then I ended up being able to have a little bit of a nest egg and kind of just concentrate on my body after that, working out.
Yeah. So then you end up playing. So you end up playing in the National Hockey League, right?
Yeah.
What was that like going back your first game in Toronto that you ever played in Toronto? What was that like for a kid that came from, the area and what you came from?
I just remember being so proud of seeing all the people that came to watch me play, because it was part of their dream too. I saw them being so excited for me, and it just gave me such a good feeling to be able to play in front of them and knowing that they were a big part of my journey, to help me get there. I just remember just not trying to get caught up in the game, that's kind of what I remember the most, Hershey. But having like 40 people come watch me in the morning for the morning skate, seeing them after that's special. And,
did you score?
No, I didn't score that. No.
So was it important to you at that point to show other kids that came out of that, that it was possible to be, to make it, to come out of those areas? And, how important did that play a role in it for you?
A big role. They get to see I was them. Look where I made it to, right? So, and there's a couple of players that are from that area. Scotty Howes, he played a little bit of pro hockey. Trevor Daly, just to name a couple. But I hear it from all when I go back there. You mean the world. Coming back and seeing us, and it makes me feel good. I always go back to the community centers that were a big part of my life growing up and the mentors in my life. So just going back to what you said, right? Just giving a kid a pat on the back, talking to them, and letting them know, and it means the world to them. It means the world. So I'm glad.
No, absolutely. And then from there, you must have scored your first NHL goal. Tell me about that. I want to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, after my very first game in NHL, I got sent down to Portland. And I remember it just crushed me. And, I had a little period. I went down. Glenn Hanlon was my coach down there, a great guy. He kind of really got me focused, and I got my chance to get called back up. And I scored in that game against Ron Tugnut, and it was amazing being able to score my first goal. And I kind of had a good little stretch there that first year, playing with Adam Oates and Chris Simon and Gonchar in the back, Peter Bondra. It was just
you're a pretty good player, yeah. So how did you deal with that getting sent down? So there's a lot of people struggling right now with what's going on, and things are going to happen to them. Things are going to they're trying to learn how to deal with perseverance and how they're going to deal with it. So you get sent down. That must have been hard to take. You have to deal with the disappointment, the emotional part of it. How do you pick yourself back up in that situation? How did you learn how to pick yourself back up and get yourself back in the NHL?
Yeah, I had that little period feeling sorry for myself, like, oh, poor me, whatever. But I just used it as I used it. I was like, okay, well, I'm down here. I'm just going to come back and show them that I do belong there. So I had a great camp. I made the team. I just wasn't ready mentally for that first game. I was just in awe. I lined up against Pavel Bure, opening, the anthem, and I'm like, okay, am I really here? And didn't play well, and so I got sent down, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to rip it up. I'm going to do well. I'm going to show them that I belong here. And that was the mindset I had. And I got called back up, and then I had a good little stretch there, Hershey. But
so what would you say to somebody that's struggling right now? They're uncertain about the future, that's kind of out there feeling sorry for themselves a little bit right now. Or I shouldn't say feeling sorry, but I mean, it's okay to have a little bit of a poor me. But that doesn't really get you anywhere. I got sent down, and I remember times where I had a poor me party too. And you know what it did to me, though, is it didn't get me back in the NHL, right? It didn't get me anywhere. Yeah, so I had to change my whole attitude to try to – and I had a coach once, Jack McElhargy, actually, gave me some great advice in Syracuse. I'd played 3 years in the National Hockey League of Vancouver. I got sent down. And Jack Mack looked at me and he said, Hershey, nobody feels sorry for you. The only way out of this league is to play your way out. And that clicked in my brain that I needed to realize that my little pity party wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to go. That I needed to change my attitude, and that I needed to play my way out of the National Hockey League. And it kind of goes for today. What's going on is, yes, this sucks. This sucks for all of us. Nobody wants to be. There's people that are losing their jobs, but the going internal doesn't help it doesn't help you get out of it. So, what is some things that, if you could say to somebody out there that's listening, what do they need to do to get out of that and get ready for that next step? Because we are going to get out of this, right? We are going to move forward. How would you tell somebody, that's struggling right now, how are they going to get out of it to get ready for the next stage?
That's a tough question, but I just know what I do now with the state that we're in. I just, when I wake up, and what am I grateful for, right? I try to think about that. I don't think about the past. It's just try to get better every day. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. My routine is I got to get up and do my run. That's my therapy. I do a nice long run. It clears me, do a little workout. And then it's like, okay, how do I get my day going? How do I improve today and get better? And we're all ultimately in charge of our own thoughts, right? So easy to say, I know, but it's just be tough, be strong. I mean, this is going to come to an end, but it's
and
tough.
Fitness plays a huge role in your mental health, does it not? I mean, you don't have a diagnosable mental health issue, right? I know that, but you can still struggle with anxiety and depression and all that stuff, and you don't have to have a diagnosable. We all do. But fitness is a big component for you, is it not? How does fitness help you with your mental health?
Yeah, I got to do it every day. I get up every morning. I do my run before I do anything. So I don't know if it's maybe the way I was raised, but I just know it just kind of keeps me fresh and clears my head.
Yeah.
And gets my endorphins going and serotonin levels up, So.
Yeah.
it helps me definitely. I definitely recommend that to people. Get out and go for a nice walk, go for a run, and then reach out to friends, family, right? Whatever, however you're feeling, just kind of use the time wisely.
Well, and that you just made another good point. And that brings me to a point too, is you and I talk a lot about things, and especially now, and this was even before. I don't have a lot of guy friends that I feel like I can open up to and I can talk to. Most people don't. Most guys don't. But masculinity is playing a huge role in in our lives. Where I learned to suck it up, not talk to anybody, don't cry, don't show emotions, don't tell anybody. Like especially not your guy friends, right?
Yeah.
You're a pretty open guy with that stuff. I don't know what it's like for you, but have you felt with masculinity? I guess the question I'm trying to ask is that what we learned back then and what we learned today, how has that changed for you?
Well, good question. I just try to be as honest as I can be and be who I am. Hirsch, I try to reach out to my buddies if I am feeling down. I got a couple of core good friends that I can kind of call, and you're one of them. Thank you for that, buddy. But I don't know. I just try to be myself. That's it, Hershey. I don't know how else to really put it.
Yeah. And not worry about what anybody else thinks, right? It's and I'm not here to be judged or judge others, right? It's a path that we're all on. And you said, you have a core group of friends, and I do. Like I have a core group of 3 people that I reach out to, that if I know I'm struggling, and sometimes it's hard for me to reach out to them, right? It's hard for me, like you won't hear from me for a couple of weeks, or I won't hear from you. Yeah. But also in my core group, if I haven't heard from you in a while, well, I better check in on Glenn, right? He's been pretty quiet. Does that mean things are good, or does that mean, right? So I'll just kind of connect, and how important it is to have that small core group of friends that you can talk to, it doesn't mean as a man, there's a lot of guys I won't talk to, right? I mean, and that's the way that we don't have that type of relationship. But having a male friendship like yourself, Metro, and means the world to me, because I feel like I can get another man's perspective on things. And I'm not embarrassed to talk to you. I'm not embarrassed to judge. But that's, and again, I'll go back to how you live your life. You're one of the least judgmental people that I know. And that allowed me to be able to open up with my stuff to you. And I hope I feel the same. But how important is that for you to not be judgmental and have people, like, where did you learn that? And how do you carry that forward with you as a person?
Well, I think I just learned that just through my mom and just growing up the way I grew up, downtown. You had to get along with everybody and try not to judge anyone. That's kind of just how I was raised. I don't want to pass judgment. Everyone has their own issues and problems, and just try to be the best version of yourself. That's just who I try to be, and just be authentic as you can be. I try to never pass judgment. I despise people like that.
Yeah, and we're all fighting through this, right? Nobody's perfect, and you've been through your struggles too. And I always think of this question too: is what would you tell that kid back then? Today, what today, like what would you tell that kid if you could go meet 13-year-old Glenn? What would you tell yourself?
Well, I'm in Tampa Bay now, doing some work with the Lightning. Now we're on pause, but I've had the privilege of being able to work with some foster home kids down here, and bring hockey into their life, a different sport, and being able to see those kids through my eyes. I just kind of tell those guys, you got to keep on working hard. It's nothing's given to you. You got to work hard, and it's almost as simple as that. But it's try to stay happy, try to control your thoughts, try to just be grateful for what you have. Right? It always could be worse. I know they think it's the worst what they're going through right now, but reach out and talk to someone. Don't feel shame. Yeah,
and you talked a little bit about gratitude too. Being thankful where you're at today, as opposed to where you came from. Do you write in a gratitude journal? How do you practice gratitude?
How do I practice? I just do it in my own head, Hershey, tell you the truth. Where I come from, I'm grateful to have friends, family. It's healthy. I've been able to, I can walk. I can, it's just got great kids. They're healthy, and that's how I put gratitude. I mean,
Yeah.
Every morning I just try to think about the positive stuff.
So take me through a day of you, like with your routine of what you try and get, during that, or even just for your own mental health. Take me through a day of what, keeps you sane and keeps you going.
Well, what I'm doing now, because I'm getting more into player development, I'm doing private trainings. I'm really just trying to improve as a coach. So I get up in the morning, Hershey, I go for my run, do a workout, body circuit kind of deal. Get back, do some research online through, the hockey, read up on the pandemic that we're going through here, and when's hockey going to start up, and rinks and all that stuff. And at the same time, I'm writing down drills, workouts for hockey players. And it's basically spend some time with my dog, and my son's online schooling, which is tough. But
itself.
Trying to support him in that, and that's really how that goes. That's kind of my day,
I had my daughter on yesterday, and we just talked about the importance of having mental health in our own home and being open and honest. Like, what do you teach your kids about that stuff, mental health? Like, what kind of parent do you try to be towards mental health and just all those things that come with it, anxiety, depression?
Well, I just try to tell Max that, let's be honest with each other. Let's talk. You don't have to hide anything from me. I'm not going to judge you, Max. That's kind of just what I try to instill in him. But it's the positive criticism that I give to him sometimes, he takes it as negative, So it's kind of,
What is mine?
It's just hard to kind of get through that kind of boundary. But it's we're growing together. That's all you can do, right? Just work with each other. And my daughters, I try to talk to them as much as I can. They're up the North Panhandle with their moms. So,
yeah, it's hard. I go through the same thing. Like, I've got, my daughter's 22. She lives in Colorado. I've got a 15-year-old in Arizona. Yeah. I've got my son in Kamloops who also struggles a little bit with mental health. I'm going to have him on at some point. But it's hard to keep, in touch with all of them. And, divorce is tough. But it's so important, I think, to stay in contact with them. And it sounds like, again, going back to, your life path, some of the lessons that you learned back then, what are some of the things that you want to pass on to your children, that you've learned over the course of your time that can help them?
Nothing's given to you. You got to work for everything. You know what I mean? That's kind of, all these kids feel like they're entitled to stuff, it seems. And it's just trying to teach them. Just trying to teach them work ethic. That's kind of I'm trying to instill that the most. And it's a struggle doing that, but
how do you feel like the statement, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it, right? I mean, that's an important thing. And like getting sent down, you can't control. And Diane McIntosh talks a lot about controlling the things you can control. Like right now, we can't control when the government opens up. We can't control going back to work, but we can control, fitness. We can control nutrition. We can control reaching out to people. We can control talking, to each other, having a group, being open, being honest with conversation, and showing, as men, that it's okay to not be okay. That's one of the biggest things that I've gotten out of a lot of this, is that it's okay to not be okay. You played. We'll go back to your career a little bit, and then I want to get into some other stuff. But you played in Europe. You played in a lot of different. Had a great NHL career. Went over to Europe. Anything you learned about their lifestyle, how they live, that helped you, back over here? Like when I played in Europe, I played in Sweden, and I realized how, the big possessions in that, they don't need a big car. They don't need a big house. My fridge was the size of, you learn to live with what you get and size and everything. So that was one of the greatest things that I learned from over there, is that I didn't need all that stuff. I didn't need a fancy car. I didn't need to be happy. What are some of the lessons that you took back from Europe when you went and played over there? You played some great spots, Lugano in Switzerland, Germany. You played at Bolzano in Italy, like just a different lifestyle. What kind of things did you learn that help you today with that?
I think just to point what you said, less is more a little bit over there. They love to get out and walk around and kind of everything was like on the day of, they go shopping on the day when they're going to eat. So every day that was just part of their routine. The fridges are smaller. They live in smaller, they call it flats over there, condos. And they're just really laid back, not too much stress over there. That's kind of what I took away from there. I lived in Helsinki, Finland, Scandinavia.
Finland, that's right.
Beautiful over there. The nature, just how they all have their own little cabins up on the lakes. That's kind of where the whole city would shut down in the summer, and families would be all up on the lakes. Their saunas and jumping in the water. So that was great. And in Lugano, it's beautiful. I was an hour away from Lake Como, Milan. Great experiences.
Yeah. And I loved it over there. I really did. I'm glad I went because it showed me a whole different way of life, right? And it's not that we'd live, different or wrong over here. It just, I learned a lot. And I always tell people if they get a chance to go live over there, in any capacity, it's very eye-opening. I know most people won't have that choice, but, and then after that, and I'll speak to this too, but you retire, right? And that hits you like a ton of bricks. That hit me like a ton of bricks. All of a sudden now hockey isn't, and I know you've had some of your struggles with that. Like, how have you found the perseverance and resilience to get through some of that stuff post-retirement? What was that like when you retired?
Well, I'm still going through a little bit of that, Hershey. It's been 3 years. You go through a divorce, you kind of go through the guilt, the shame, whatever, I could have done this differently, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So that kind of weighs on you a little bit. And then I try to move back to the small little beach town area where all the kids were. And I did 3 years there. And I realized that I needed to get back into hockey. Hockey's in my fiber. And that's why I made the decision to come down here to Tampa, last, 8 months ago with Max. And he's playing hockey. I'm coaching. I'm in a happy place in regards to coaching kids, being able to talk to them, lead them, help them with their dreams and their goals. But yeah, it was definitely a big time transition. You had to coach your whole life, telling you when to be at the rink, what to do, how to work out. You got to watch this video. This is how you get better. And then hockey's done, and then you're on your own a little bit.
Yeah. What I love is because we talk and that. You were living in Pensacola, and I was so impressed and proud of you for you were changing freaking light bulbs at one point, right? Like, this is a guy that played in the National Hockey League, that played in front of thousands of people, and I think that a lot of guys post-retirement are too proud, and they let their egos get in the way. I'm not going to go do that, and I was personally, I'm just so proud that you would set your ego aside and go do what you had to do, right? And go do what you had to do. And I know that's hard. How did you get through that?
Well, I did that for about 5 months. I just was trying to look for some sort of structure, Hershey. You know what I mean? I was living in a small little beach town, and I do little NHL alumni tours and maybe Montreal Canadiens. That'd be a week, a month, or something like that. So, with that being said, it was I didn't really have a schedule, and then finally, I was coping with this situation that I was dealing with. Just all the noise. I was just dealing with it the wrong way, and then a good friend of mine that owns a company up there, Ocean Reef Resorts, unbelievable friend of mine. His company, I was like, hey, dude, I need some structure. Can you help me out? He's like, yeah, we got a job, maintenance job. I'm like, okay, well, man, I'll give it a try. And I did that for 5 months, and I was grateful for that opportunity to be able to give some sort of structure. But then, it was kind of my wake up too. I was just like, I got to get back into hockey. That's my gift. That's what I know, and that's kind of. I wasn't shamed for what I was doing. Yeah. It was what it was, but it was a wake up call to kind of give me a kick in the ass, I guess. It's nothing for guys that do that, but that I'm a hockey guy, and
and I guess my point is setting your ego aside, because a lot of us as men, our ego keeps us from stuff, right? Like the the suicide rates right now for middle-aged men off the charts, right? And I talk about this in all my broadcasts, and we need to change that, right? Like we need to change the way we view masculinity and our egos and that, and setting our ego aside to do what you need to do, right? So I see a lot of guys that come out of the game, and they've made all this money, but now it's like they don't want to do what they need to do in order to move forward and have a routine, because you're right, it's hard. It's really hard to go from playing in front of 20,000 people to having to set your ego aside, and you're making like $25,000 or $30,000 to start, right?
Yeah.
And our egos can get in the way, and our masculinity can get in the way of doing those things. And you've been an inspiration to so many people, just where you've come from, where you are today. And it sounds like for me, it's just you learn quickly how to set your ego aside. And is that was something that was taught you, just from what you've seen, or just over the course of your career? And you talked about guilt and shame, and we all deal with that. I deal with that too. I still have a lot of that I'm trying to deal with. I have a divorce, right, too, that I didn't want to happen, but I still deal with all of that stuff too. And it's hard to set aside your past. But what's the best advice you can give to men out there that need to set aside their ego, that need to set aside their past in order to move forward?
Well, the guys that just come out of the game, like we were talking about, you lose a coach, you lose that. Try to really reach out and get some help. The NHL alumni or Players Association, they got help for you. That being said, they can reach out to me or you. I'm good to talk. I'd love to talk to anybody that's going through issues and just need someone to hear. In regards to any more advice about ego, just push it aside. Do what you have to do to kind of get going.
Yeah.
But,
and pushing it aside, and if you need therapy, that's another thing too that ego can keep you from, right? And I encourage everybody to go and get therapy if they need it. I encourage people to, whether you're male or female, and sometimes the ego gets in the way of that, and it's a difficult thing to set aside as a man because of how we've grown up. And how would you like to see things change today, for your son, so that you're teaching him, the right things about masculinity?
Well, we're kind of growing up in a different kind of, age and time right now. I'm raising a son kind of on my own down here in Tampa. So I'm his coach, I'm his cook, I'm his cleaner. I'm trying to raise a young man, and I'm just trying to get him to own up. You know what I mean? Like, if you made a mistake, just say you made a mistake and move on. Learn from it. I think that's important. Don't judge people, until you know the whole facts, and be yourself, right? And kind of do the right thing. I'm just trying to. That's where I'm at. I'm trying to. You're not given a blueprint. I've never really. I was raised by a single mom, so didn't have a father figure really growing up with. So with that being said, I'm trying to do my best to raise a young man that people want to be around. And that's the most important part for me, is that I want Max to be able to. I want people to appreciate him being around, him being a good soul, being a good person. That'd make me the most proudest.
And that brings me to another interesting point is that like I had a dad that was all my practices, a wonderful man, wasn't very open. I didn't get a lot of hugs and a lot of I love yous, but he was at every practice. That's how he showed how he loved me, right? Wonderful man. I had a great mom growing up, but at some point I had to realize that they were people too, and that they had struggles and issues too. And just as far as you with parents, I mean, your mom went through her struggles and all that. How do you keep an open dialogue for people out there that I think it's awesome, like I said, about judgment, and you're still in contact with your mom and you still talk and you're still trying to help her and stuff. What was that like for you when you first realized that your mom was a person too, just trying to get through every day and just trying to do the best for you?
Yeah, I think she's gone through a lot of guilt. You know what I mean? But you want to raise your kids the best you can, right? And give them everything, they need and want. And I tell her how much I love her. She's always committed what she could. I knew a lot of stuff was out of her hands to be able to provide stuff.
Yeah.
And she's really apologetic for it, but she knows how much she's loved. I don't hold anything against her at all. She's the best mom. She did whatever she could. And, that's kind of what I learned from her. And that's, being raised without a dad, kind of just by her. It's kind of like I find myself being maybe too easy on Max. You know what I mean? I just want to love him so much and give him that tender, that love, that the hugs and all that. But, sometimes you got to do the tough love too, to kind of teach him. So it's a balancing act that I'm trying to really figure out.
Yeah. So what do you say to a parent out there that feels, like you said, your mom feels guilty about, and she did the best she could. So, what do you say out there to a parent that, feels guilty a little bit or isn't proud of how, what they, like my parents feel like, so I was diagnosed with a mental illness. My parents feel like it was their fault. Right. So, and I've had to let them know that they were the best, like they did the best they could. And that, they didn't need to feel any guilt or shame or whatever. What do you say, being the child of a parent that really went through some tough times that, might be feeling the same way, but that shame, that guilt, we all have that.
Right. I just ask them, are they doing the best they can do? That's basically it. We're all trying our best in this world, this life. It's not like you're out to make one life hard on someone else, or I know I'm not. It's give it the best you can. You only got one shot at this thing. Do the best you can. We all have our own issues that we're dealing with, but just I don't know, Hershey. It's kind of
get rid of the shame and guilt that you don't need it, right?
Right.
Like you love your mom for who she is and what she did for you. Like she did the best she could for you, and is incredible in her own way, right? And that's it relays on to my own kids. Like I look back, I missed a lot of my kids. I missed a lot of their lives. Like I traveled. Like I thought making money and playing and doing that was the best way to parent. So I have some guilt over that right now, but I'm trying to let that go and forgive myself, right? And that's another thing, is forgiving yourself for the things that you've been through, or maybe you missed something, or, how important is forgiveness in your life and the ability to do that?
Well, that's huge, right? Yeah, you got to be able to move on and kind of be able to, the past is the past, right? You got to throw the rearview mirror out, learn from it, and move on. Become a better version of yourself today and tomorrow. So that's, of course it creeps in. You feel guilty, shame a little bit, but it is what it is. It happened. Just try to improve and be the best version. I know I keep saying that, but just try to be the best you.
That's all you got, right? I mean, you can just you do the best you can, man. Sometimes it's not perfect, and when it's not, you need to be able to forgive yourself and just do the best for your kids. Metro, we'll end it right here, but thank you so much for being so open and honest about your stuff, about your life, about, I don't know if you know this, but you're an inspiration to a lot of people. You're an inspiration to me, believe it or not. We've had a lot of good times together. I'm still never going to forgive you for Budapest, and we won't bring that up in this show. But it's
great for the book, Hershey.
Yeah. And is there anything else that you want to tell people out there that might be going through some struggles right now with this, as a last message or a last word? Anything that comes to mind?
Just anyone that's really going, try to work on a good little schedule. Try to get your workout in. I mean, I believe in that. That's kind of my therapy. Get your workout in, and that kind of helps you release some stuff. And try to read good material, right? I'm trying not to watch the news as much as I can right now, because that brings in negative stuff. And obviously you got to be aware and up to date with the times, but it's a scary moment, but just
keeping your environment positive. And you know what, we're going to get through this, right? And we're all going to be better for it on the other side. Thank you so much, Glenn. Really appreciate it. Love you, brother. I can say that. You know that. I love you. Doesn't make me any less of a man.
I don't know if anyone tuned in, but if anyone did, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys, and stay strong.
You got a lot of fans, buddy. You got a lot of fans. So thank you so much, Metro. And we'll talk to you soon. Tomorrow I've got another great guest, Chrissy Hodges, friend of mine. She struggles with obsessive compulsive disorder. She's written a book. She's an advocate, peer support, and just a really good friend of mine. When I talked about, having a circle of 2 or 3 people, she's part of my circle. Glen's part of my circle. I have another friend named Kelly that's part of my circle. And I still have a significant other, but it's important to have those groups of people that you can reach out to. Get 2 or 3 people that you trust, that you can talk to. You're not be able to open up to everybody. You're not going to go out on the street and say, hey, I'm struggling. No, you need somebody, a group that you trust, someone that you can open up to. I suggest that for everybody. Glenn made some great comments today about just, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. And this is a man that went through a pretty tough go, where he grew up. We talked about being a mentor. And it might not just be to your own children. He had a couple of people along the way that really helped him get to where he got to. And you don't know who you're affecting. You don't know if you're affecting someone's child or somebody else, or who you're helping along the way. And it's just so important to be open and non-judgmental, because ultimately, Glenn needed that when he was younger, and he needed that when he was a kid. And you don't know when you're going to be an example for somebody. And you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be. It was an uncle for him. It was a junior hockey coach. And for me, I had wonderful parents. I had great people along the way that I could open up to. So you never know who you're going to reach or who you're going to touch. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it was as good for everybody else as talking to Glenn. And as a man, I'll tell Glenn I love him. He's one of my favorite people in the world. It doesn't make me any less of a man. So from there, thank you so much for watching today, and we'll see you tomorrow.